Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's team training Tuesday. I like to call it Applied NeoLife because we want to make our products and our whole opportunity real and applicable to real life. And what I like to do on a Tuesday is to actually discuss as well when there's time. And fortunately, there will be time because this is an extended platform. Today, I have the utmost pleasure of welcoming a very dear friend of mine. We have a history of several years. She's a dietitian, and she said to me that, you know what, we need to look at it in a different way. No medical jargon, nothing, just to explain. And she is in a position to do that for us. So we're going to discuss diabetes, and that's why I've called it Another Look from the Perspective of an Experienced Dietitian. So right now, what I'm going to do is stop the screen share and be able to have Adeline Kgantsho Ranyane speak to us.
Okay, thank you for the platform, Isiza. Good evening to everybody who's joining us. My name is Kgantsho. I'm a dietitian by profession. I'm a private practicing dietitian. My job entails dealing with conditions that need dietary assistance or guidance, either hospitalized or not hospitalized. And tonight, our main focus will be on diabetes and how to go about understanding, dealing with it, treating it from the perspective of the diet. And at a later stage, Dr. Nambasi will join also to focus on the products and their impact in diabetes. Okay, so we are trying to avoid the normal medical jargon. You know, you go to the doctor for treatment, and by the time you leave the rooms, you've heard so many things. They've spoken of HbA1c, they've spoken of blood glucose levels, but you're not making sense of what's happening. So my emphasis and what I try and tell my clients is that diabetes is not just about taking a tablet, drinking a tablet, and being okay. You need to understand the impact of the tablet or the insulin you've been given. You need to understand how it works on your body, but most importantly, you need to go back to your diet and review and understand how the food that you are eating impacts on the medicine as well that you are taking in. You need to understand how your body deals with this food that you are taking in. Because there's this saying that you are what you eat. That's definitely true. But in the case of diabetes, you find that most of the time it's not even your fault that you are diabetic. It's a condition that comes and it starts because of many issues, obesity being one of those that perhaps we sort of play a role in inviting the diabetes into our bodies. But it can happen because of genetics. It can happen because your pancreas is not producing enough insulin anymore. So if you understand the impact of what you are eating, you understand the impact of how you should eat, I think then it becomes easier that even when you are at home and you do not have money to buy certain foods, you know that if I avoid this and I use something else, then my blood glucose levels will more or less be under control. Okay. Now, we all eat because we are hungry. We need energy. So what we eat when we are hungry impacts on how high or how low the blood glucose levels will go up to. It will also impact on how fast or how slowly whatever we took in is absorbed into our systems. So we need to understand that when we are diabetic, we must understand how the starch will impact, how the veg will impact on the blood glucose levels, how the protein, how the fats and so forth will impact. Because if you go to a dietitian and they simply give you a menu and they say, follow this, if you don't have money to buy those products, then you are in trouble. So you need to understand, why do they say, okay, fine, brown bread instead of white bread? Why do they say not refined products and so forth and so forth? All right, so now picture this, we are eating because we need energy into our bodies. So we take in the plate of food into our bodies and we are diabetic at this point. Now we depend on insulin that is being produced by the pancreas to come in and remove this food from the system as a transportation mechanism to the rest of the cell, so that the body can get that feeling that you are full and you stop eating. But now in a diabetic patient, there's not enough insulin. You might be depending on the insulin that you are injecting, but the body is not producing enough insulin anymore, which means that whatever you are eating will probably just accumulate. I want you to think of it as accumulating in your bloodstream without being able to move away from the bloodstream to the cells of the body. Now, what happens there is that as it's accumulating in the bloodstream or where the blood is flowing, then it takes over the space for oxygen. And if you remember, blood is a substance that actually transports oxygen, that transports nutrients to the rest of the body and removes the waste and back out of the body. Now, if your transportation system, which is the blood vessels, is full of this energy from whatever you ate, then we've got a problem, because it actually invades the space for oxygen to be taken by the blood. So you'll find that you are always tired. You'll find that also you become very thirsty because your blood is too concentrated with this energy. You become tired, you become thirsty, you become hungry. Those are the symptoms of diabetes. Some people will tell you, I'm always hungry, or I was always hungry, and I don't understand why. It's simply put in my own words, I would say it's because the insulin, which is supposed to transport the food away from the blood, the transportation, is not there, which is the insulin. It's not enough. Or it could be that the energy that you took in was simply more than what the body could handle. Because now you must remember, if you are on insulin, you're injecting insulin, you depend on certain amount of units that they would have prescribed for you by the doctor. Now, if you eat too much, you take in too much energy as compared to what you are injecting, you're going to run into a problem, because you'll have a surplus of this energy. Now, why I'm mentioning particularly energy is because I want us to move away from the notion that diabetic people should not be having eating sugar and fats. We've got that mentality that sugar and fatty foods are the reason why people become diabetic, or diabetic people should avoid such, which is not necessarily true, because all the foods and even the substances that we are drinking will have energy to some extent. Hence, you'll find even a packet of chips will have information on the energy content. A can of Coke will have information on the energy content. So in diabetes, we should actually be focusing on the energy content into the body and the sources of energy. Now, you'll say, but we have to eat. Yes, we have to eat, but which foods will be more suitable? It will be the food that it's not concentrated with energy. It will be the food that is rich in fiber. It will be the food that is not easily absorbed into the system, because if you take foods that are absorbed easily, it means that your blood glucose levels will increase very fast. That's why the concept glycemic index, I'm sure most of us have heard of glycemic index before. We are trying to push for foods that last longer. I'll say they take longer to go through the gut so that you don't end up becoming hungry every 2 seconds or 2 minutes or so forth. Now, going back to the fiber will also contribute positively to your diet, because then it improves satiety. You become fuller quicker. It stays in the tummy for longer. It's good also for stimulation of the gut and also prevention of things like colon cancer. But the source of the fiber will be an issue. Hence, we have to look at what we are taking in, because personally, I would say the quality of veggies that we are having nowadays is not to the level that perhaps it was at about 20 years ago. I mean, we all know that because of population growth and the inability for markets to keep up with us growing, we end up having food that might contain chemicals, which might not be necessarily play a positive role in our bodies. But we do need such things. We do need such things as vegetables, I mean, not the chemicals. So we have to eat the vegetables on a daily basis, because they will assist. Also, why? Because they do not provide a lot of energy. We have to focus on foods that do not give out a lot of energy, because foods that give out a lot of energy into our system simply will also take up a lot of insulin, which will not be available. Even if you are injecting insulin, you'll find that if you continue on a high energy or high caloric diet, the insulin that you're injecting simply cannot, it cannot assist you. You end up needing more and more and more insulin. So if we understand that with diabetes, it's about trying to reach a balance between what comes into the body and the insulin that is available, then you'll be able to go back to your diet and say, okay, let's adjust, because we don't want food that need a lot of insulin to be moved away from our system into the cells. Now, we've got different food groups. We've got starch. We normally say rather use brown. Go for brown starches because they are higher in fiber. They are good to prevent constipation and colon cancer, and also to promote satiety. And then reduce refined starches, white starches, because even with white bread, you eat, you're hungry, you keep eating. And in diabetes, that's exactly what we don't want, because then you end up using up whatever little insulin is available in your system. Then we've got, you do need your starch. I know that some people will say, don't eat starch. Actually, what I normally advise is minimize the starch, because I don't want you by 12 o'clock, you feel like a zombie. You do need energy in the body, but you need to understand that energy from starch is far more concentrated. I mean, we grew up knowing about the food pyramid and starch being the energy-giving foods. So if we want to minimize the starch that goes into our bodies, we need to make sure that even if we are taking in starch, it's not refined and it's rich in fiber, in other words, and we don't take in too much of it at a time. We also need a lot of vegetables, because they serve, I normally say they serve as an opposite to what starch does. Starch gives out a lot of energy. Veggies also have energy, but they do not give out a lot of energy into the system, but they give you a lot of fiber. So you are full, but you are being filled more by the fiber, because it takes longer to transit through the system, which is a good thing, because then it also assists with things like constipation. I'll say, I know I'm generalizing, but most of the time you'll find that with the Black population, we prefer to have a lot of starch on the plate and minimal veggies. And sometimes people will say, no, I do take my veggies, but you find that it's just like 2 spoons on the plate and 3/4 of the plate is starch. In that way, you'll find that this person ends up taking in a lot of energy instead of a lot of vitamins, minerals, and fiber from the vegetables. So it should actually, I normally say to them, make it vice versa. That bulb, the space for the bulb should actually be the space for the vegetables, and then the space that you normally put for veggies on your plate, reserve it now for the bulb. You know, maybe just 1/4 be starch, and then half of the plate rather be vegetables, because we want to fill up without getting in a lot of energy into the system. Now we also have protein. Protein, it's one of those things that are so essential to the body. We need it on a daily basis. It also assists us to feel fuller for longer, so we don't become hungry every 2 seconds or so forth. That's why sometimes I even say, if you feel like snacking, rather snack on protein instead of snacking on fruit. Not necessarily saying that fruit is a bad thing, no, but in diabetics, because we want to control the energy that goes into the body, fruit is not such a good idea all the time. Why? Because it's sweet, it's got fruit sugar, we call it fructose. So I normally say it's hidden sugar, because you automatically think of it as being healthy, as being something similar to a veg. But in diabetics, we have to be very careful of fruit. We have to be very careful of fruit juice as well, even if it's 100%. Why? Because it's high in fructose, which is fruit sugar. It can spike your sugars very easily, because it's a liquid, so it's easily absorbed into the system, which means that it will easily increase the blood glucose levels. That's why they say if your sugars are very low, take a bit of Coke or sugar water or fruit juice quickly, then it takes it up. So if you want to control the blood glucose levels, it's one of those things that you need to make sure that you do not always consume. I normally also say, rather, if you want an apple, rather take a fruit after food, because you have to understand what makes me hungry. You'll find that sometimes you are hungry because you are bored. You are hungry because you didn't eat a variety. You didn't have variety on your last plate. You didn't have enough vegetables that fill you up with fiber. So you think, okay, I'm hungry and I'm diabetic and I shouldn't be shaking. So you go for the fruit, you start eating. 2 seconds later, you grab another one, you grab another one. So what are you doing? You are filling in, with fructose, which is actually like a sugar, which will increase your blood glucose level. So I normally say treat it as a dessert, as a reward, and rather have your proper plate first, with half the plate being vegetables, some starch and protein, and you'll find that you don't even need to snack, because now you are full from all the vegetables that you took in when you were hungry. Now, so we've covered the starch, we've covered the protein we need, we've covered the vegetables. And I know some people think that, I can fruit, half a watermelon, I've taken in my veggies or vitamins and minerals. That is wrong for a diabetic. You need to make sure that majority of the plate still is more vegetables, and maybe try to reduce or minimize food as much as possible, especially if you know you love the food. And then I know some people will say there are better fruits, other fruits are not so better, or other fruits are bad, the baddest. So I normally say fruit is fruit, because it's got fruit sugar. Be very careful, whether it's a banana, whether it's an apple, whether it's grapes, you need to make sure that you don't take too much. And normally, like I said earlier, take it after food as like a dessert or a snack. Or you'll find that after food, you don't even feel like taking it anymore. Meanwhile, before that, you were very hungry and you were craving, particularly for the grapes. But after you've eaten a balanced plate, you might find that you don't feel like taking this fruit anymore. And I need to also highlight that I'm not saying fruit are bad in diabetics. No, I'm just saying because you find a pattern whereby people would rather not cook veggies or take veggies and they would rather take fruit. We need to be careful with how much fruit we are consuming on a daily basis when we are diabetic. Just want to mention that when we are diabetic. The other issue that we need to be careful with is the preparation methods of our food. Things like fat, frying, those are things that we need to minimize as much as possible, because the minute we put any food in fats, then it ends up absorbing all these fats and becoming higher in caloric content. So it will have more energy. For example, I've got 2 potatoes, one I cook in water, the other one I fry and make chips with it. You'll find that even if they are 2 exactly the same potatoes, the one that has been fried will have more energy. So we need to be careful as to the use of fats in our cooking. I'm not saying cook veggies without oil, but we need to minimize the use of oil as much as possible. The other delicacy for us is we call it gravy. We call it gravy. Some call it mhluzi or moro in South Africa. We have to be careful with that also, because it's actually the cholesterol from the meat that remains in the pot. And you know, as we don't waste, we need to scoop this gravy and put it on our starch. So for diabetes, we also say, because in some traditions they even drink it, we need to be very careful with that. It's actually just plainly taking in cholesterol with a lot of salt, because the salt would have been left in the pot. There's a correlation between, in my view, between diabetes, hypertension, and cholesterol. You'll find that in most patients, it starts as either hypertension or diabetes or cholesterol. Then over a couple of months or years, they end up having another condition. So they keep adding on. And what I've realized, in my personal view, I would say it's because of the way we are eating. It's because of the way we were brought up, our dietary history or habits. Because you might find that you are diabetic, then you have hypertension, or you have both of them all diagnosed at the same time because of the high content of fats, which automatically invites the salts in, because nobody will eat a high content of fat without salt. I mean, think about it, even the gravy will have a lot of salt. That's why gravy is so lekker. You'll find that potato chips that are fried will have a lot of salt. Most of the things with salt, you'll find that they also have a lot of fat. So we have to be careful as to how are we eating. We also have to be careful about what we are taking in, the liquids that we are taking in. Are they high in sugars? Are they not high in sugars? Carbonated drinks, I know some will say, no, I'll use the Coke Zeros and the Pepsi Zeros and so forth, which is all good, but we need to understand that we need more water than anything else. In this day and age, we should be drinking more water than all these other things. So I normally say also to my patients, if a product is rich in diabetic friendly, it does not necessarily mean that it's 100% safe to use, because it might be very rich in sweeteners and chemicals that are hidden that you don't understand, or even fruit sugars. You know, if you buy, sorry about that, if you read the content, you won't understand what it means, but it might be rich in other things that could actually mess with your blood glucose levels, or even end up messing with your kidneys, because you are taking in something that your body doesn't want. So the use of raw salts also, we need to be very careful with that for the sake of hypertension. We need to increase our vegetable consumption as much as possible. Sometimes I listen to Dr. Esiza talking of, the other time she was teaching about sauerkraut, the cabbage, the raw cabbage that you we need such things because there is a lot of fiber in it, even if it hasn't fermented. But the more we learn to take in vegetables, the better, because they have a way of controlling the blood glucose levels. Why? Because you are not always hungry. So whatever energy you're taking in from the starch sources becomes enough in your system, because then you are not hungry every 2 seconds. So cabbage could become your best friends, but we must remember that even the green leafy part of the cabbage should be part of the cabbage, not just the inside, the white inside. We need those green veggies. We need the different colors on our plates, because those are where the vitamins, minerals, and a lot of fiber are, especially the green part of the leaf. So be careful with fruit and fruit sugar. Physical activity is recommended. It's highly recommended, but it does not necessarily assist in controlling your blood glucose levels if you don't deal with what is going into your body, because we are what we eat. What else is there? Snacking, things like Simba chips. Understand what you put in your mouth. Simba chips is potato that's been fried with a lot of salt. So you need to understand that you are taking in a starch. Understand what goes on the plate. Don't have up and rice and potato salad and sweet potato. That's 3 starches. So you need to understand, what food am I taking in on my plate? We also need to understand how much percentage of my plate is starch. Is, like I said, maybe make it half vegetables. Not necessarily at a time when you are cooking, you put half cooked vegetables. Be creative, make salads. Make sure that every time when you eat, there's a variety on the plate, because a diabetic patient can't simply have bread and tea for breakfast. No, you are loading your body with carbohydrates, which means that the little insulin that is there, or whatever you have just injected, will be used to take away all that carbohydrates, all that energy that you took in. So it's essential that you understand that you must have a variety on the plate. Understand that protein has a good benefit of filling you up, but I'm not saying have a lot of it, just have enough. Understand that vegetables also assist in filling you up, because the idea is to fill up with food that does not increase your blood glucose levels, which in my opinion would be starch, particularly white refined starch, too much fruit, fatty foods as well, because that's increased energy content if you fry anything. And what's the other one? There's another F, fats, fruit, sugar, and sugar, because also a lot of products have got hidden sugars, which we need to be very careful of taking in, like the Coke Zero and things like that. Be careful of what you take in. Understand the packaging. Understand that the carrot is a veg. Understand that sweet potato is high in starch. So understand your food groups. If you understand your food groups, you'll be able to know what goes on the plate. Your meal preparation should be a fun time. You can have veggies in the form of salads. You can still have sandwiches. Avoid takeaway as much as possible. Rather make it at home, because then you'll be able to reduce the amount of fat that you are taking in. But we need to remember, we are human. Sometimes you'll feel like exactly what you're not supposed to be taking in. On days such as those, need to make sure that even if you are going to take in something that you know that you've been instructed not to take in, make sure that you've had your proper plate, so that the cravings are not as bad as they would be if you have them on an empty stomach. I hope I'm making sense. I make sense, or you understand rather what I'm trying to say in that sentence. Make sure that you eat a proper meal before you give it into your cravings. When you feel like something that is not allowed on your list, make sure that you have eaten a healthy, balanced diet, so that you don't end up messing it up by taking in too much of the wrong things.
Okay. I think what we could do now is find out from all the people that have logged in, I know many of them are distributors, but if there are any guests as well, if you have any questions for our dear Kgantsho Ranyane, you can ask some questions now. What you can do is put your hand up. She has covered diabetes so extensively from the dietitian point of view, the perspective of the dietitian. And we really appreciate what you've done for us, my dears. This has really clarified a lot of things. And when I put up the slideshow, it will be a summary, really, of what you have said. Okay, are there any questions? Would anybody like to put their hand up and ask any questions? Because if not, I will slide into the slideshow and then we can keep.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
There is somebody who is always having a burning feet at night and even some heat. But he uses products, but it has taken a long time to go. So how can we help that individual?
Is he diabetic?
Pardon?
The person is a diabetic?
No, they have not discovered any diabetes in that person for so long.
Okay.
I think in that case, they need to get checked out. It could be neuropathy. It could be diabetes. It could be also low potassium levels, but they need to be checked out by the doctor first, because I don't think it's good to recommend a product when you don't know what is happening in your system. You need to understand and be okayed by the doctor so that you can assist the medicine to work properly. And you won't be able to assist the medicine to work properly if you don't know what's wrong with you. If there's that burning sensation, it could be, I've seen it, I think it could be the start of diabetes, or it's already there. The person is already diabetic. And I've also discovered it with patients with low potassium levels, that they get cramps. So in that case, I would actually advise them first to go and get checked out for diabetes.
Because they could be pre-diabetic. Okay. See, Kumbulani's hand went up first, and then we'll have Anna. Then I will do my slideshow. So Kumbulani, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
I have a question here. I have someone who is diabetes. So I want to know if, let's say, as we know that our supplement sometimes is control the sugar level. So let's say I give someone a Botanical Balance or NeoLife shake. So what will happen into the insulin if I give someone a Botanical or NeoLife shake? Then those supplements take the sugar level into control. What will happen to someone who's still injection with the insulin in the body?
Okay. With insulin, sir, first and foremost, we need to understand the type of insulin that is, because there are those insulins that are fast acting, there are those insulins that are short acting. So we need to understand what type of insulin is it, because then we'll be able to understand the interaction between the diet and the insulin that the patient is on, has been placed on. Giving such a patient like shake can be beneficial if especially they're not taking in enough vitamins and minerals, but it could also be dangerous if we don't understand what type of insulin it is. And if the patient is not on a properly planned diet or does not just eats anything, then it could be dangerous, because then we are adding more calories onto already a lifestyle that is full of calories. I don't know if I'm answering you properly.
Yeah, thank you. Right.
I
Thank you
think
very much.
the answer there is that they need much closer monitoring, because it is possible that as things become stabilized and rebalanced, they may need to lower the amount of insulin. I've seen it personally, so I'm speaking from experience, until ultimately, if control is optimized, if it becomes really stable, they can, depending on what type of diabetes it is as well, they might be able to be weaned off the insulin, because a lot of type 2 diabetes or adult onset, it's really a lifestyle disease, and it needs to be managed as such. And that's why our dietitian has given us a lot about the lifestyle of eating, the diet itself. So Anna, please ask your question. Then after that, Kumlani, you can put your hand down. Anna.
Good evening. Good evening. Can a patient with diabetes eat whole wheat bread? Yeah, that's just my question.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you know what, I know that some believe that whole wheat is good because it's high in fiber. But then there are some that will tell you that the fact that it's whole wheat, it might have extra sugar. But if taken in moderation, because it's brown bread, if taken in moderation, like I said, the plate should not have a lot of starch. It should not be an issue. The issue becomes if we are having 4 slices of it with tea, which is wrong for a diabetic, like I tried to explain. So if it's whole wheat, it's actually better. It's the best compared to white bread, because there is more fiber to it. But the fact is, it does not mean that if it's brown bread or whole wheat, we must take a lot of it on the plate. We still need to incorporate our veggies and our protein on the plate as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna, for that. Now we are going to go back to our slideshow and to highlight the solutions that NeoLife has given to us. And it, Kgantsho and I did not actually discuss anything, but we are in so much synchrony that it is uncanny. So I want to start with toxins and say that the first and foremost piece of advice is to remove toxins from the environment, because these are what we call hormone disrupting chemical, the ones that they buy in the stores. They have a lot of hormone disrupting chemicals, whereas ours do not have those chemicals. And so by just changing the home environment, and that's where we belong to this family, which has a lot of logic, and it's important to understand why one thing leads to the next. So by advising them to remove hormone disruptors, they will stop having an impact on the biggest hormone that gets disrupted, which is insulin. And then they can focus purely on the diet. Now, these are because one of the reasons that there might be a shortage of insulin could be because the body cannot make it because of the absence of a full complement of all the amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. NeoLife Shake, NutriShake, and the Sports Shake all have 22 amino acids, and they are formulated to be a complete meal with the right ratios of the fats and the carbohydrates, the minerals, and the vitamins. So by giving everything in one meal, it is so, so crucial to give all the 22 amino acids with everything that supports them in a single meal, instead of having 9 in the morning for breakfast, 16 at lunch, and maybe 5 at supper, something crazy like that. The body will never be able to make insulin. And that is one of the biggest factors that we are seeing a rise in the challenge of diabetes. And then the other core product is Pro Vitality. And up close, it has TRINN. Vital, vital, vital for cellular function and for building hormones. It has lipids and sterols, and that forms the template on which the body begins to construct insulin. Now, a lot of the food we are eating has been processed, and all these oils are processed out, and nobody gets them unless they supplement. So I'm making a case for supplementation here. And these have ceased to be luxuries. They're actually necessities if we are to bring down and end the trend of chronic disease. And then I didn't ask, can you see my screen? Yeah, everybody can see it. Okay, good. Then this one here is called Carotenoid Complex. We've heard of the importance of our vegetables and fruits. Now, out of that, we are trying to get the carotenoids. Those are those food factors, the phytonutrients that are protective as antioxidants. Now, diabetics need a lot of antioxidants. Actually, we all do. Let me be fair. We all need them, but they need them more because of the damaging effects of high sugars that they have on board all the time. And then we have omega-3, very, very, very important. It has actually been shown to help bring down inflammation, but also diabetics tend to have a deficiency. And because of the dietary factors, there's too much inflammatory fats in the already embedded in their cells. We call that arachidonic acid or arachidonic, it's an essential fatty acid, yeah. So what omega-3 comes along and does is to literally evict those bad fats that cause so much inflammation, and then bring down that inflammation. And then, of course, vitamins and minerals. There's a tendency for deficiencies in minerals and vitamins. As you've heard, potassium could be one of the reasons that they develop neuropathy, okay? Nerve problems in the, not only feet, but if you recall, I once mentioned that even the gut gets the nerve system of the gut impacted by diabetes. So here we are. We have clinically proven results to effect weight management, and by reducing body fat. Remember, once there is storage of fat in the body, it impacts, for example, on the efficiency of release of insulin by the pancreas. Because if you can picture a pancreas struggling to release this insulin, but it is caked in fat, the fat within the abdominal cavity, then that insulin is actually wasted. And that is one of the mechanisms that has been shown to be one of the factors that causes an apparent shortage of insulin, especially in the type 2 diabetes or the lifestyle induced diabetes. So just by encouraging weight management, and that's what NeoLife Shake can do. I'm speaking also from experience on that one. And then, yes, lowering the BMI, it protects the heart. You've heard that heart disease and diabetes run together. It also improves cholesterol. Again, we heard a lot about cholesterol. So I'm making a case for the value of supplementing. Eat as sensibly as possible. And that's why I wanted us to hear the perspective of a dietitian. But the reason for supplementing is our diets are no longer supplying everything. I've mentioned omega-3 fatty acids, very important. Also very, very, very deficient in our diets. All you need to do is to know your supplier. There is a glut of omega-3 fatty acids sold in the shops, but you need to trust the people who supply them for you. Ours is the only one which gives you all the 8 molecules of the omegas that we need. Then why have I put vitamin C up? I'll tell you why. Diabetes causes a big deficiency of vitamin C because glucose that is too much in the blood uses the same transport systems as vitamin C, which is required to build tissues. And so if there is competition, you can imagine if there is competitive and aggressive competition between two things, the one that is most will win. And if there is so much glucose in the blood, then vitamin C will not be transported. And that's why we see diabetics developing all sorts of challenges, such as problems with their eyes and problems with their legs, like gangrene, needing amputations. And then also earlier on, it shows in the skin with a lot of wrinkling and all sorts of other challenges. So what do you advise a diabetic as regards digestion? And why do I bring digestion up? We've just heard from the dietitian and the point of view of the dietitian. It is important for them to know a lot about their digestive system. What you need to do, as we've heard, control intake of carbohydrates. Don't overeat. That is such a simple piece of advice. Don't overeat. Supplements are important, and I've just shown why and how, and we can discuss it further. And then digestive aids. The reason I put digestive aids up is because of the enteric nervous system, that is the nervous system of the digestive system. Just like the legs and the genitalia may be affected by neuropathy causing, as a result of diabetes, even the gut nerves become affected by neuropathy. And therefore, there might be a tendency for them not to function and the gut to become static, to become lazy, not to expel everything. So it's important to use digestive aids. And the first one I want to point out is in our detox program called Stage 6. It's a gentle laxative. Then some markets have acidophilus, others don't, but that is another one. And then garlic helps with managing the blood ability to flow smoothly. Why? Because diabetics, because of the insulin, the inflammation, there is a tendency for the blood to be a bit thicker than other people's blood that are non-diabetic. And so you need garlic on board, apart from the fact that garlic also manages conditions such as candida or other fungal infections that are very, very rampant in diabetics. So I've just put up the whole detox program, but you can get it as individual items. Beta-Guard is important. They need to detox from time to time, as we all do. I need to keep emphasizing. Today we're discussing diabetes, but it applies to all of us. And then we have aloe vera. Aloe vera is an amazing digestive aid. It helps to relax that muscle of the gut and allow easy evacuation of stool. Because if diabetics and non-diabetics are constipated, there is reabsorption of toxins back into the bloodstream. Nobody wants that. Trust me on that one. And it also hampers control of blood sugar if there is chronic constipation. Then we have phytodefense. This is really phytonutrients that protect, and NeoLife has scientifically proved that this gives you 6 optimal servings of fruits and vegetables. Check it out, read around it, get to know that they have taken out the key protector nutrients called phytonutrients, or antioxidants. I put up vitamin E, again, for circulation purposes. It's a powerful antioxidant as well. And then Botanical Balance. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a game changer. It's a real game changer, made out of cinnamon, turmeric, and curcumin. Promotes blood sugar glucose balance, and it really does. Now, not just diabetics. Don't wait for that to happen before. Don't wait to become a diabetic before you say, my goodness, I need this product. If you can use it, do, because we all need to control blood sugar to limit damage that comes as a result of inflammation. We all know that turmeric is a powerful anti-inflammatory agent, and by using Botanical Balance, you'll find that you are just enhancing. It's very much like adding spices to your food. We just happen to have it in a formulation that will work. Now, the use of these products will depend entirely on you, but we encourage them, and as a result, you are encouraged to build your businesses so that they become affordable. Magnesium is important in over 400 enzyme systems, and diabetes is one of those conditions that needs a lot of synergy between the enzymes that are happening. And here is a very cost-effective product, recently introduced into the East African market. We've had it for a few months, but it is very, very good, because as you heard, energy production can be a challenge in diabetes. And as a result, there could be fat storage disproportionately. So this is a good product, as is this one, which is another game changer, recently brought to the South African market, mitochondrial energy, and that is where energy is created. That is in our cells where energy is created. So it will support heart health, which we've heard is linked. Diabetes and heart disease are the twins of diseases. So this will support it very well. Now, I just thought I would, as we close down, remind you, please limit such foods. This gentleman or lady or whoever came up with this idea said limit it to less than 1 serving per week. So perhaps you have it as a treat once a year, and then after that you sort yourself out. But these are very inflammatory. These fats promote oxidative stress and inflammation, and you really don't want them in your diet. However, we have a good carbs pyramid, and this is what we've heard a lot about this evening. Lots of leafy, colorful vegetables, and more vegetables, and more vegetables. Your plate should reduce on the carbohydrates that are high glycemic index and bring in the low glycemic index carbs. So these are carbs. Some fresh fruit, as you've heard, nuts and seeds, and then sweet potatoes tend to be more starchy, and therefore you can eat them, but less than these ones. And then all these other potatoes and all that. So let us go back to good food, guys, ladies and gentlemen. I believe the difference will amaze us. So when it comes to processed sugars, did you know, and now we are talking diabetes, that high sugar diets are correlated to increased risk of Alzheimer's? Haven't we seen that? Yes, we have. And Alzheimer's is really failure of insulin to perform its duty in the brain. And that's why it is referred to as type 3 diabetes. So we are all on a mission to make the world a healthier and happier place. Thank you very much for being here. We are now going to open up for discussion, questions, comments. And for those of you who have stuck it out till the end, thank you very, very much. I'll stop sharing and stop recording.